Hey, don't kill him. Just throw him in this pit and just leave him in there. So they just threw him in the pit, left him in there. And this is where God's plans comes in. This is where God's plan comes in. While he was in the pit, there were these merchants that were passing through. I don't think it was a coincidence. This is where God's plan began. And the Bible speaks of how the brothers sold him to this merchant as a slave. And this merchant was going to take Joseph to the land of Egypt. Now, it might not seem like it was God's plan. So, he was taken. He was taken away and taken to the house of Potiphar. He was sold. Potiphar was an officer. Was an officer of Pharaoh. And he was taken to be sold in Egypt. And guess who was there to be sold in Egypt? Joseph. Joseph was there. And the Bible speaks of how Potiphar acquired him as his slave. So he took him in his house. And the Bible speaks of that he had so much favor with Potiphar that he made him in charge of every possession that he had. He made him in charge of his household, his business, everything. Because there was a favor of God on his life. And so it's not Joseph's fault. It's not Joseph's fault. God's favor was with him. And he was in charge of everything that at Potiphar's house. So the Bible speaks of how he was in charge of everything. But one day, the Bible speaks of that he was very, very handsome young man. And he not also had favor with God, but he had favor with Potiphar's wife. So Potiphar's wife was looking at him, like, wow, this guy's very handsome. He's very smart. And the Bible speaks of how she harassed him every day. She wanted to go to bed with him. But one day, she was a little more aggressive than others. Because she grabbed him and told him straight out, I want you to come to my bed. I want to sleep with you. Straight out. But Joseph, fearful of God and respected his master, that he spoke to her and said, my master has given me authority over his business and his household and everything that pertains to business that I cannot touch, that I have no permission over, is his wife. So the Bible speaks of how she grabbed his coat and he said, you know what, I better run away. So he ran away. To make a long story short, he was in prison because he told Potiphar that he tried to rape her. So he was sent to prison. And while he's in prison, God's favor was still on him. When God's favor is on you, no matter where you're at, no matter where you go, when you have God's favor, anywhere you go, you'll be blessed. Anywhere you go, God will be with you. Anywhere you go, everything will prosper for you. People will see that there's a difference and there's something's different about you. And you'll stand out for who you have believed in. Because Joseph had honored God. And the Bible speaks of how he was in prison and he was still had favor over everything in there. He still had favor in prison. The Bible speaks of how the guards put him in charge of the prison because they saw how everything he did prospered. He had a lot of favor. So the Bible speaks of how the guards didn't pay any attention to what he did because they knew that he knew how to take care of business because God had given him the abilities to do that. And God's favor was still with him. Let me tell you something. When you serve God and when you're doing the right thing and what God has called you to do, you can't avoid it. God's favor will be on your life. You just got to trust him. No matter what situation you're going through, you got to trust him in anything. Just like Joseph. Joseph was hated by his brothers. Joseph was talked about by his brothers, despised by his brothers, sold as a slave, and accused of being a rapist, put in prison. But in the Bible, it doesn't speak about how he was distressed or angry towards God because of that. No. He still had trust in God because God was with him. And I want to read a portion of the Bible. And it's the book of Genesis, chapter 39, verse 20. And it says this way. Joseph's masters took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison guards, so that the prison guards put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all those that were in there. The guards paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. That is beautiful. That no matter what situation you're going through, there's one thing that humans and that no one can take away from you is God's favor in your life when you're serving God and doing what God has called you to do. If you're listening to me through this video, I want to let you know that there is a purpose in God. God can give you that purpose, and God can give you that favor over your life that you're looking for. Maybe you feel like you can't achieve anything. Maybe you feel like there's things missing in your life and you cannot never grasp it.